So as Cole already mentioned, we have a link to the agenda in the chat. Definitely a great place to start, and it's an awesome way to follow along as we go. That's that right there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, as I just meant, is that we record these sessions, and they are going to be available in the new weekly newsletter. We actually have a question about where you could view past sessions, and we are working on a landing page for that. And we're going to put that in, I actually don't know where we're going to put that yet, but we're working on it. We're going to get a good solution for that. So for this session, what's on the agenda? So we're going to first start with a demo of our upcoming Advanced Save and Continue perk. After that, we are going to do a little demonstration of how to create custom transitions with GP page transitions, as well as explore some of the features that just were released with the 1.0 launch. And then after that, we have a bunch of really good questions that were pre-submitted. So we'll answer those. Also, as Cole mentioned, as I go through each of these sections, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And then at the end of each section, Cole will let me know what questions there are, and I'll go over them at the end of each section. All right. With no further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Advanced Save and Continue. Oh, actually, I wanted to mention, if you haven't already, Gravity Forms 2.7 is available now. They are doing a staggered rollout. So that means that they're releasing a batch, releasing Gravity Forms 2.7 to a batch of customers. It's kind of randomly selected. And then after 2 weeks, they'll expand that, they'll release it to a larger batch. And then again, another 2 weeks, and they'll eventually get out to everybody. So yeah, if you don't see it yet, that's why you just haven't been randomly selected. But you can always go to your account page in Gravity Forms and install it manually. And that's what I've done here. My local site was not fortunate enough to be selected. So I had to go the old fashioned route. All right. So Advanced Save and Continue. So this is, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in, I don't know, mid last year, I think maybe August, we did a poll and just said, hey, which of our snippets would you most like to see us convert into a perk? And Advanced Save and Continue won that poll. And so here we are about 6 months later, releasing it as a perk with some pretty awesome features. I'm really excited to demo this for you. Before I actually show you anything, I just wanted to talk really quick about, we get this question a lot when people are introduced to this. And then it's like, basically, how does this differ from partial entries? So partial entries is, if you're not familiar, is a Gravity Forms add-on that will save data, form data, as the user progresses through the form. And as long as they're in the same session, it should preserve that data. But as soon as they go to a next page or anything, or as soon as they go to a new tab or open it up in a new window, it's gone. The user no longer has access to that data. So this is really more about like capturing data for the administrator than for the user. So what's the differences and similarities between these two? I think 3 points summarizes them the best. First, they both autosave form data. The big difference is what happens with that data once it's saved. Again, so partial entries allows the administrators to view partial entries in the back end, which Save and Continue does not do. That data is kind of locked away. It's kind of reserved for the user, for the user's benefit. Whereas with Advanced Save and Continue, it actually allows users to access that data either through the default functionality of a token, which they can email themselves or save, and then just access that URL and it will reload the data. Or with Auto Save and Continue, it allows them to automatically come back to that form, and it will just automatically not only automatically save it, but then automatically reload that data into the form. All right, enough talking. Let's see what it looks like. And actually, I realized I already have this tab open. Oh, wrong one. Let's do our workshop one. So we have a form here, has a few pages, has a few fields. And now we're going to go over up to the settings, and you may be used to seeing the auto save and continue, or excuse me, save and continue in the form settings. Well, we've added so many features, it just didn't make sense to keep it here. So now you'll just see that there's a quick link to jump over to the save and continue tab. Also accessible via the settings, and if you're already on a settings page, it's accessible in the sidebar menu. So now we're going to go ahead and enable save and continue. This is Gravity Form's default warning that this does save data, so there is some privacy concern there. But yeah, we actually address that with some of our functionality as well. So the other default feature that Gravity Forms provides is the link text that appears on the Save and Continue button. So I'm actually going to go ahead and save these settings and just show you the core functionality. What does this look like without any other, when you just get Gravity Forms? So this is me entering in my name and a fake email, and you'll see nothing is saved at this point. If I refresh the page, it's gonna we're gonna lose everything. So I'll type it in again. So annoying. But if I click this button here, save and continue later, it takes me to a new page, and it says, hey, here's a link that you can save. And if you click this link again, which I will do now, it'll reload all of that data that we entered. So you can see it's a pretty awesome feature. It's great. It's a great way for users to complete long forms and not feel like they have to finish it all in one session. The other thing you can do with the core functionality is you can actually send yourself an email. You can send yourself this link by entering your email address here. I'm not going to demo that. And instead, we're going to go back to the settings, and we're going to explore what advanced save and continue adds to this core feature set. I'm going to come back to this one, but let's go into the kind of like the meat and potatoes of advanced save and continue, and that is the ability to auto-save and load that data. So when you enable this, you'll see that a little new section pops up here. So this gives you the visitor prompt. So if the user is unauthenticated, this is again a kind of a core feature of auto-save and continue, is that people want to auto-save data even for users that are just visitors to the site. They don't have a login, they're not logged in. So you're going to see what that prompt looks like in a second, but this is a series of settings where you can actually configure every detail of that. So we're going to go ahead and save. And first, I'm just going to show you exactly how the auto-save and continue works. I wonder if I have a debugger running. Oh, I'm in a weird mode. Man, let me change the view for just a second, y'all. Bear with me. There we go. I do have a debugger running. So sorry that it was taking a little longer than I was expecting. And I was like, So now we're in enter presentation mode. Exit the full screen. All right. Sorry about that. So now that we have that saved, we're going to go ahead and preview this. I'm going to enter my name again, Dave Smith, davesmith.com. And so one thing you might have automatically noticed is all of a sudden this token appears in the query string. And that's because it's automatically been saved. As I was typing that, it just, boom, saved a draft. So for example, right now, if we refresh this page, you're going to see that that data is still there and it is saved. Now, the reason it's auto-saving is not only because we checked that checkbox, but because I'm also logged in. So let's see how this works if I wasn't logged in. So live preview is an awesome perk. And I'm going to use the live preview feature of live preview to load this page. Here, I'm going to create a new incognito window, and I'm going to access this page logged out. Now, by default, live preview would still require you to log in to view this, but I actually have a filter in place that's just a return true filter. And what that does is it allows me to grant access to anyone to view my live previews. And it's safe to do in this case because I'm on a local server. No one else has access to this. If you were going to do this on a live site, you would probably want to put some additional requirements in there, like maybe restricting it to a specific user role, unsure. But for now, I just have it set this way so I can test things as a logged out user very quickly on my forms. So this is the prompt I was talking about. This is the visitor prompt. So if you have enabled autosave and load for your save and continue, the visitor and any unauthenticated user is going to see this prompt. It's going to say, hey, would you like to automatically save your progress? And again, this is because there are some privacy concerns here. You don't necessarily want to save that data without the user's consent. And so that's what this prompt does. It just says, hey, we're going to save it if you let us. And obviously, it's helpful to them. So we're going to say yes. The form is here now. Nothing else changes. And I'm going to go ahead and enter in random user. And you can see here the token's there. Awesome. We'll even go to the next page. Awesome. Let's refresh now. And you can see, interestingly, we started on the second page again, which is not how it would typically work. And that's because we have enabled auto save and continue. And so it picks you back up right where you left off. Now, obviously, sometimes that might not be ideal, but if you run into an issue with that and you want to start from the first page, let us know, and I'm sure we could add a hook for that. All right. Another thing worth noting here is as we have progressed through this form, so let's go here and select a few more options. Second choice, third choice. Awesome. So all those settings are changed now. And let's go ahead and access this page again. So one thing that you'll notice here is it tells you right at the top, anytime you access a page for the first time and it auto loads data, it will let you know, hey, you're resuming your draft, and this is the draft date that you're resuming from. In this case, it's today and just a few minutes ago. And it also gives you an option to start a new draft if that wasn't your intent. If you wanted to come to this form and actually start a fresh one, no problem. You can save that and be like, oh yeah, this is actually for a different user. And then we could go to the next page. And again, if we refresh this one, actually that one's not going to, because we have this saved June draft there. But if we access this form fresh, then you'll see that it reloaded all that data. And this is again for that user Roger Wynn. Okay. So we have all those drafts. We created a bunch of drafts, right? We did one for me, one for Roger. Let's do one for Jane here in our unauthenticated version. Oh, actually, I just realized that's going to save over this one. Oh, well, we can polish it up in a second. So we have these drafts, and again, it's always using the last draft, and the previous drafts are just kind of gone. Again, if they saved the token, they could access that draft again. But as far as the auto loading functionality, they're just not available anymore. And that's something that we thought was going to be super beneficial to expose to the end user. And so we call that draft management. So let's explore draft management. First of all, we're going to enable it. And then we're going to go down to the draft management settings here. And in this case, the easiest way to do this is to just click this button, display available drafts above the form. But if you need something a little bit more custom, there is a short code here that you can just copy, and it will get that code for you, and you can just put it wherever you want, and it will just work and provide the same markup as we're going to see here in a second. Let's go ahead and just save these settings. Let's go to preview. And now I'm going to do a hard refresh here. Oops, that. Hard refresh. Boom. So we can see now that it has at least one of our drafts. Well, first of all, it tells us that we're resuming a draft. So this is the Jane Awesome draft. And so if we click this draft, we can see which one this was. We'll go back to, oh, so this is our Dave draft. Awesome. Now, that is obviously what I just showed you there is like sometimes you just don't know what draft it is, If you're using the form irregularly, it may be enough to know the date. Like, oh yeah, I submitted this last week. That's the draft I want to start from. And we didn't quite tackle this as a setting yet, but we do have a filter here. Let me move the zoom bar out of my way. And this allows you to control what you output for the draft. So you can take actual data submitted in the draft and output it. So basically the only line that really matters for you is right here, where I am creating a string of what I want to output, and then I'm telling it to pull this specific data. In this case, this is the name and the first name, and then name, last name. All right, so now that is in place, and you make sure it's saved. And now I'm going to refresh this page again. Again, do a hard refresh. And you're going to see here, draft for Jane Awesome. And then it says you are resuming your draft for Dave Smith. Now, if we start a new draft, we can see that both of those drafts are up there. And so now let's start a new draft for Roger Wind. Do roger@wind.com. Again, it's already saved. We can literally just refresh this page. And you're going to see, hey, we're resuming that. And we can start a new draft now. And you're going to see that the Roger Wind draft is up there. So now let's just click on some of these. Oh, okay, so that actually is an interesting point I forgot to mention. So whatever page the draft was originally submitted from, it will always display, it will always link back to that page. So for example, Jane Awesome, I actually completed from the live preview page, but Dave Smith, I completed from the default preview page, and the same thing with Roger Wind. So that's why those two load there, and then the Jane Smith loads on this separate page. Just a hot thought as I experienced that, in this demo, I'm thinking that maybe you might want to limit drafts to the specific page that you're on, the view you're on. So yeah, I'd be interested in feedback on that. If you guys think that makes sense for you, or if you actually want all the drafts regardless of where they're submitted from. So that way you can see everything that was submitted and saved for this form. Okay. Two other little small things, and then we'll move on because we still have a lot to cover, not with Save and Continue, but with other the page transitions. In some cases, you might want to display the Save and Continue confirmation in line. This is particularly relevant when you don't want to save. So again, let me actually take one step back. When you enable Save and Continue, it automatically adds these confirmation pages. The first confirmation is the confirmation that says, hey, here's your link, and it has the option to email yourself. And then the second one is if you submit that email to yourself, it gives you a confirmation that that link was sent to the following email. So we're going to go to this first one here, and we're just going to gut it and just say, your progress has been saved. So with that in place, I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. Go back over here. Again, I've clicked Display Save and Continue Confirmation Inline, and we're going to save the settings. So now I'm going to go back here. Let's start a new draft. And I'm going to start a new option here. And now I'm going to click Save and Continue later. And you'll see that it just loads that inline. So that way they can just continue working. They don't have to break up their whole flow. Some people just want that extra, that feeling of like, hey, I clicked a button. And in this case, again, you may not be using all of these features at the same time. You may not be using draft management. You may not even be using the auto save and load. You might just want to use this option where they're saving it. So we're just kind of including a variety of features here so you can kind of configure it as you need. And then I think the last thing I'm going to do here is just show you the simple option here that will just hide the Save and Continue link. I imagine this is going to be super useful when you just don't want the user to even necessarily be exposed to having to make that decision of whether to save and continue because you already have the auto save and continue activated. In that case, save the setting. All it does here is it just removes that save and continue. So you can have save and continue enabled, but just not have a button displaying it. And again, in that scenario, you would generally only want to use that if you have autosave and continue enabled. Oh, one more thing, and just remember, you can also delete drafts. You just click the little trash icon and the draft goes away. All right, let me consult my document over here and make sure that I covered everything. Yeah, I think that's it. Questions?
We had a few come through, but it looks like Clay has been fielding them personally, so you're good to go.
Okay, awesome.
Real quick, David, did you go over how it would merge unauthenticated with logging in?
I didn't, mostly because I didn't test it yet. But yeah, technically, if you start a draft as an unauthenticated user and then later log in, it will capture those saved drafts and then associate them with your user account. So that way you just preserve that progress, and again, you don't have to worry about losing data. Awesome. Then let's move forward. Custom transitions with GP page transitions. So I'm going to move kind of quick on this one. We've talked about page transitions a lot. It is active. And I just want to kind of give you like a high level understanding of how it works. So first of all, page transitions, once enabled, if you go to your starting page and you go down to perks, you'll see that there's some options here. So first of all, enable page transitions. This will just create an animated transition as you progress from one page to the next. There's 2 available transition styles, and this is actually something that we're going to be covering today, how to add an additional transition style. And then also there is enable soft validation. So the way that soft validation works, best demonstrated with a demo, is that rather than submitting the form as you progress from each page to each page, soft validation will just essentially ignore the validation. It will do some basic front-end validation, like making sure that a required field is filled out. And there might be some other stuff I forget off the top of my head, but it basically catches like the obvious mistakes that they're going to make. And that way it just speeds up the form submission dramatically because you could just progress through. You don't have to submit the form every time. Even with Ajax, it takes, a little bit of time for that to happen. And as you can see, I'm just clicking right on through this form. So this works really, really well for simple forms where there's not a lot of room for user error, drop down radio buttons, those kinds of things. Excellent, excellent choice. And also just, again, the visual is just so smooth. It honestly creates like a sense of just visual momentum, which can absolutely drive users to complete the form more quickly, which I think is the goal for almost any form, is to get someone to submit it. So, the other thing to notice is that the bar itself is animated, which is just, chef's kiss, just a nice touch. It just feels so good. Okay, so that is kind of the page transitions aspect of this. There's also enable auto progression. So with auto progression, as you saw, I was already kind of demonstrating that. When I make a selection here, it auto progresses the page. Oh, I'm on the last page. That doesn't help. So you can see here, I'm going to make a selection and then boom, I go to the next page. I don't even have to click the next or previous. And you can actually hide those in this if you want. So the reason that you might hide the previous, you might think like, well, how do they get backwards? Sometimes you don't want them to get backwards. Sometimes you want them to keep moving forward no matter what. Obviously, I say use that with discretion, but it is an option. So let's refresh this to show you guys how it looks without that. So again, you can see just progresses right on through. And then at the end, you could use, obviously, you still need a submit button. And so then you submit. Okay. So those are kind of like the big, the functional pieces of this. I also want to talk a little bit about, Bryce had a pre-submitted question that I thought fit really well here. Bryce asked, does page transitions have an option to not advance unless next or other buttons clicked? And absolutely, honestly, you just don't enable auto progression. Okay, I wasn't sure if those would be automatically unchecked. So in this case, you select an option and then you have to click next. Yep. So those are 2 separate features. You can enable page transitions and auto progression separately. All right, moving on to some of the big changes that I got 2 highlight features I thought I built from 1.0. First of all, we switched to Swiper.js. It's way more modern, definitely more reliable. It's still in active development and maintenance. And then also it's just more powerful. Like some of the transition effects that you can pull off with Swiper are just incredible. I love them. So yeah, it paves the way for, obviously just a more reliable future for us supporting this product. And then additionally, there's some cool transition styles, which I'm about to show you here in a second. The other big thing that we added for 1.0 was page conditional logic. So with Gravity Forms, I think it was 2.6, they introduced this idea of front-end conditional logic. So actually, I'm going to disable page transitions. Actually, you know what? I can leave it enabled with auto progression disabled to show you what I mean. But if I select first choice, it actually hides my second page. And you saw there how step 1 of 5, it used to be step 1 of 6. And if we go here to this next page, we can actually skip another page. You'll see that it's step 2 of 4 now, because there's a page that's literally being hidden. In fact, now that I think about it, I think that showing this in the context of stacks might make this even easier to see. I'm very curious to see, we have some extra steps there. I'm just going to fill those out. So again, we're going to select this first choice, and then our personal information page is going to disappear. Wow, that was a little slow. And we go to the next page, and we select that, and the other, I actually forget what page that was. Let's see. That is very slow. They say never open your debugger in a demo, but I just couldn't help. I was so tempted just to see if there's an error there, but I'm not seeing an error. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's so slow, but we can look into that. I haven't seen that before. But yeah, you can see that the page just disappears. And then I think emergency contact will disappear from this page. Yep. And then go to the next page. And I don't think anything will disappear on this page. We just go to the last page of the form. So it's kind of hard to show you that we fixed it, other than I could just roll it back and show you that it didn't work before. But now page transitions works with that. As you saw, like it just smoothly transitioned from one to the next. And the pages are shown and hidden dynamically as well. And again, that was just like a very highly requested feature. All right, now moving on to custom page transitions. So I just want to let you know right now, this is not going to be like a deep dive into all of the code that powers this. It's not that much code, but it really is just intended to show you kind of the reason why we wanted to switch to Swiper, to enable us internally to add new changes like this, but then also just to show you that it is possible for you to do the same thing whenever you are feeling inclined. So let's go to my other form that I have set up. What is it called? There it is, cards transition. And we are going to go to the preview for this. And right now it just kind of looks like, a normal form. I obviously applied some styling here. The buttons are linked. So now I'm going to actually apply this code here into my functions.php file. I'm scroll down. So I have some of this collapsed. But the big thing here is that we just need to update this 123 to our form ID. We can see here that the form ID is 671. So I'm going to copy each of those. And if you're not using multi-select in code, you got to do it. It's so convenient. So I've just updated all of those 123s to 671, which is my form ID. Taking a quick peek at the code here. There are just some specific settings that we tweaked for this transition that just made it work better. But the key one here is this effect. We're saying, hey, we want to load this cards effect. And in order to load this cards effect, we actually have to do this filter first, which is the return true. And what this does is by default, we're trying to keep everything performant. So for most people that just want to use the slide or the fade transition, we only load those effects by default. But if you want to just get full access to all of Swiper's transitions, which are many, let's take a quick look, for example, at the cards. So this is the cards transition. You can see I'm doing this with my mouse, but there's like you can do this with, you can trigger that effect with other actions, such as, clicking the next button. Here's another example where you can slide the page in like this and the other page goes in the back. I think there's one up here. There's a flip effect. So you could flip your form pages like this. So all of these are possible with just a little bit of code, and again, enabling this extras because everything gets loaded.
So do you have a sneaky little tick on line 42 in the filter name? Just wanted to save
line 42. Dang, that would have got me. All right. So we have our effect. In this case, we're going to go with this cards effect here. And the only other thing that we need to do is we need to enqueue this essentially a JavaScript filter here, the GPT or GPPT swiper options. And then we need to make sure that it knows that we're using this effects card. And that's pretty much it. It just loads that effects card so that when this bit tells it to use that effect, it actually has the code available to load that effect. All right, so that is all in place. I'm going to refresh this screen, and we have some parts. You can see I applied some basic styling here. You can find that styling right here, and I have just put this in an HTML field here. I don't love doing that, and I think every time I do this, I think to myself, we need to make our custom JavaScript plugin that adds a custom JavaScript setting to the form settings. We need to do the same thing with custom CSS, because I find myself in this situation all the time where it's so specific to a form. I don't really want to load it into a style sheet. And I just always want it to be output just where that form is. And so this is something that we're going to work on. If you like that idea, ring the bell. I'd love to pursue it, and our customers like really dictate our roadmap in a huge way. Okay. So let's go ahead and progress through this. So you can see it just kind of goes through each one, and I have auto progression enabled, but you can also, see the buttons here. Those styles are what are floating the buttons to the right. Just felt like with a card format, it felt more intuitive to actually have, you flip this way, you flip back that way. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Any questions about just page transitions in general, or about doing custom transitions with page transitions?
It looks like Clay has handled the majority of them, but I will say the bell is definitely being rung.
For the custom CSS?
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Yeah. I mean, just using it myself, I know how awesome that would be. All right. Awesome. Then it is time to move on to the Q&A portion of the workshop. So just kicking things off. Holy cow. We had so many questions come in for OpenAI. Some of them were obviously as part of this workshop, but also just on social media and in support itself. We just get a lot of questions, and most of the questions are pretty simple. And that is, can you show me some real life examples of GF OpenAI? Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into an actual example right now, but because we've got so much demand for this, we are going to do a workshop for this. Cole, could you post the link for that workshop? It's the next one. I think we're going to do it on March 2nd. And this one's going to be exclusively dedicated to OpenAI and all the things that you could do with it and Gravity Forms. But with that said, I don't want to just leave you hanging there with anything. So even though I'm not going to demonstrate any examples, I did want to kind of just go over some examples just to kind of, get the wheels turning. So first of all, support, right? We do a lot of support at Gravity Wiz. We haven't implemented this yet, but I'm definitely interested to try. And that is, you can actually categorize the sentiment of the request. Essentially, how frustrated are your customers when they reach out to you? Because that's an important, indicator of how good your pre-support process is. How good is your documentation? How good are your plugins in general? Are your plugins, is the UX creating a lot of frustration? So being able to gauge the sentiment of customers, just their replies through AI, which it will just tell you, hey, this is a positive, neutral, negative. Again, no interaction from the customer. Just submit their request through the AI response, and it will just tag the entry and save that value into a field. So then you can, create reports on it and be like, oh, okay, well, I see we have, 50% of our customers are actually frustrated by the time that they reach out to us. Let's explore that. That's obviously a clear area that we can explore. Another one is moderation. Prevent, harmful or inappropriate language from being submitted or flag it for review. Again, one of the endpoints for OpenAPI is the moderation endpoint. So you can send all of your content through, and you could either mark it as spam if it's inappropriate. You could just flag it so that hey, okay, this one was marked as spam. I need to take a closer look at it. Or you can just simply block it, just prevent it from going through at all. And all of those I think are pretty compelling uses of AI. I mean, especially as AI continues to develop and become even more advanced. The last one here is grammar correction. And again, this is the last one, but these are just like the three that I thought of on the fly here. You can literally tell OpenAI how to correct submitted data. So you're like, hey, I want to make this sentence case. I want to make it lowercase for some reason. It doesn't have to be you tell it what the grammar is. It doesn't have to be by a specific timeline. I also just realized I keep looking up to the side because I'm looking at myself talk. So I'm going to center myself. So I'm looking at you. So yeah, spell checking, formatting corrections, even just ideas on like, if you want to make suggestions on how the user could edit it, think Grammarly, like how much do you pay a month for Grammarly? It could do stuff like that. Again, it's maybe not as polished as Grammarly, maybe not as well integrated into your system, but this is just, again, a way to do that kind of thing with Gravity Forms and provide that value to your customers or your users, whoever. Last thing I will say, Scott, our support lead, recorded a video just today showing how to basically present. They write something and then it presents a suggested, like a suggested edit for that. And then they can choose whether or not to accept that edit before they submit the form. So I would definitely highly recommend watching that video. Okay, moving on from that. And I'm not going to take any questions on OpenAPI just because it's such a big subject. So moving on to Jason's question, asking about support for Excel and OneDrive. Basically, we don't have any current plans for this. We haven't really seen a ton of demand. Obviously, it's not to say it's not there, but we just haven't seen it. And basically, we're just waiting to kind of get that feedback from customers that customers want it. I mean, that's honestly one of the things that we're like doing these workshops for, is that sometimes we get exposed to ideas that people aren't proactively telling us about, but you come in here and you talk about an idea, then someone's like, oh, actually, that would be helpful to me. So if anyone else in here needs that too, please ring the bell. Preston asked about past workshops. I already touched on this, but I just want to call out the fact that I did link to both of these here, where you can go to the weeklies that we included a recap on them and access the recording. Again, in the future, we're going to do a landing page where you can just view all of them, especially, after we have 5 of them. I think that's definitely enough for a landing page. Kenny asked about how do you set product prices by a custom field, or is it even possible? So yeah, Populate Anything supports setting the price by a custom field, either for the current post. So you can say, hey, I want to get this custom field for the current post that the form is embedded on. It populate that into a field, or you could do it based on a post selected in a dropdown. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip demoing that, but if we have time at the end, I'll be happy to go back. Farhad asked 2 questions. Advanced Save and Continue plus nested forms, do they work together? Yes, just not in a child form. Again, I think it's just a bad UX to put too much into a child form, especially like Save and Continue, that concept. I just don't think it's a great idea for just UX. But it does work on the parent form. Child entries are restored, and that's no different than regular Save and Continue. It should load those child entries. Yeah. The other question was the release dates for Populate Anything 2.0 and Entry Blocks 1.0. No definite ETA on either one, although Populate Anything 2.0 is likely to arrive next month. Ken Kramer, dang it, buddy. I did my best not to put last names. And your name is just, the alliteration so strong, I had to include it, I guess. How does Advanced Save and Continue data retention work? So right now, if they are an unauthenticated user, it lasts forever, or technically until the token expires, the Save and Continue draft. That is actually kind of core Gravity Forms functionality. You can extend that for 30 days. Or excuse me, it's defaults to 30 days, but you can extend that however long you want. I don't think there's no like hard cap on it. So you could essentially make it last forever. Just say like, hey, make it last for a year or even more if you need that. I did want to mention that for unauthenticated users, while the draft itself will last forever, if they clear their cookies or if they start a new browser session, they won't be able to access it in the new browser session. And if they clear the cookie, then it's just gone to them unless they have saved the link. If they save the link, like email it to themselves, that link will be good until getting that 30-day expiration. All right, we're doing pretty good on site. All right, of course, we got Rob here asking the big questions. Rob asks, how can we encourage better collaboration across the GF ecosystem? And I'm actually going to read all of Rob's question just for the nuance. For those of us who use multiple Gravity Forms related plugins, Gravity Forms, Gravity Approach, Gravity View, and Gravity Flow, getting support is sometimes tough. The desire of plugin authors to isolate and limit work to issues that specifically concern them is understandable, but it is not how most sites seem to operate. What can be done to encourage better crosstalk, collaboration, and integration across the Gravity ecosystem in terms of both development and support? So, first of all, we are definitely connected with all the certified developers. We're in Slack together. We talk, I wouldn't say we talk all the time, but we talk regularly. I feel like we at Gravity Wiz, our goal is definitely if we see an opportunity that we could benefit from their product expertise to fix something on our end, such as like we're already integrating with a plugin and there's a bug that we just can't quite figure out, we'll definitely reach out to them. We already do that. The other time that we'll reach out to them is if we have insights into a problem that we feel like needs to be addressed on their end. We'll just throw it out to them and, kind of, unfortunately, we do have to kind of like leave the ball in their court. We can't like force them to do anything, and that is kind of like exactly the crux of the issue that you probably experience, which is that we're sometimes just not aligned on where the problem should be fixed. We think it should be fixed in their code base. They think it should be fixed in our code base. I will say, just tooting Gravity Wiz's horn a little bit, I think that we go above and beyond to try and support all other third-party plugins. There has to be limit, right? We can't just support every single feature, every single configuration. But I really genuinely feel that we do our best on that. And I think it's very rare that we have to actually just say flat out, like, no, we can't do it, or without providing any kind of next step. If you disagree with that, I'd love to know. I think this is one of those things that would be super beneficial to have more specific examples on, like, hey, this is the bug I'm experiencing. And then I could kind of better articulate our decision. If it was our decision not to fix that, I could tell you like, hey, this is why we're not fixing it, or why we think it's, the other developer's responsibility. It's funny because you asked previously about the Gravity Forms acquisition of Gravity Flow and how I felt about it. And this was actually one of the best things about that acquisition for me was that it simplifies this decision-making process. And, any Gravity Forms official product, there's just no expectation that they are going to, directly support our products or directly integrate with our products. So then it makes it clear that the burden is on us. And so that decision, it just takes out one factor of that decision-making process, which is who is responsible, who owns this issue. Even with Gravity Forms, there are sometimes there's things that are literally in their code base that we can't fix. But again, it greatly simplifies it. So with Gravity Flow now, we're able to just commit a lot more to supporting integrations with it, just knowing that it is now part of the mothership. So, I don't think that necessarily answered your question so much as it provided some insights into like where we're at and how we approach it. Ultimately, it's just business decisions, and again, I think I would love to revisit this conversation in the context of a specific issue, because I think that would be super helpful. And I encourage everyone here as well to, if there's something that you think that we should support that we are not supporting, I'd be down to have that conversation. All right, 1:46, a minute over. I think that's going to be it for now. Were there any final questions that I could answer before we close up shop?
I think the sentiment around Rob's question was echoed by many people in the chat, and just, some general frustration there. Also some love for Gravity Wiz and the support. I noticed one comment from Nay, and she said, sorry, I'm just finding it here. A plugin tracker between the ecosystem, or an issue tracker. So just as a suggestion, looking at a way to create a mutual bug tracker to track plugin conflicts between everyone.
Yeah, I like it. I think there's probably something there. Awesome, y'all. Well, yeah, I think that is definitely a conversation that we can continue to have. And other than that, thanks for coming. This is a blast. I really enjoy these. I hope that you guys do too. And like I said, we already have the next one scheduled March 2nd. So mark your calendars. We'll be probably sending out an announcement about that in the next weekly or so. And yeah, again, just thanks for coming, everyone. I hope you all have a very productive day. Take it easy.